Hello, grade 10 students. My name is Miss Novak, and I'm going to be your virtual teacher for this week, week 2 of online learning. Last week, you were with my colleague, Mr. Benson, and he brought you through week 1. You launched into some learning with an introductory text, I believe, about shopping. Well, this week, we're actually going to break right on into an anchor text called the necklace, and we're going to move through a similar process. So hopefully, you paid attention last week and we can move right into the learning this week. But just in case, we're going to have a little bit of an overview of what to expect from these videos. So again, each video is going to be a little bit different in nature. Some weeks might be with Mr. Benson, some weeks might be with myself, but it's going to follow a similar pattern week to week. There's always going to be a list of resources and materials that you'll use for that lesson. There's going to be a brief overview of the learning for that lesson, so we'll really break it apart bit by bit so you're not caught off guard or nothing's a surprise as we move through our learning for each lesson. It's going to be a quick model. So much like you enjoy inside of your regular classrooms at school, the teachers right now, we're going to try to model some of the lesson components so that you have that first layer of practice before you launch into your writing efforts at the end. And of course, there's going to be a preview for the next day's learning. While I love jokes, I also really enjoy fun facts. And what better than fun ELA facts of the day? Let's think about this fact for a second. Those who read fiction have a larger vocabulary than those who do not. Fiction usually contains a wider range of vocabulary than nonfiction does. See that myth out there that if you read encyclopedias and nonfiction articles, your vocabulary will be much more expansive than someone who reads sci-fi? Not necessarily. So maybe we should read a little bit more about unicorns? I don't know, maybe a healthy balance. But what about realistic fiction? Here's where I think we get the best of both worlds. And it just so happens that our story this week is realistic fiction. What this means is that there are elements of both the nonfiction world as well as the fictional world. And oftentimes realistic fiction, there's a twist at the end. Or at the least, it doesn't always end in a fairy tale. Let's get ourselves reacclimated to the packets. I know that you've only been with the packets about 4 days now, but they are really important in terms of framing our learning for each week. So again, this is April 20th, the week of April 20th. Our directions this week are much the same. However, we'll see that inside of these directions, we have a little bit of an intro to the story. So in the necklace, we're going to explore the question of whether a young woman should be satisfied with ordinary comforts or if she should pursue her dreams of a life of luxury. Same guiding questions. Guiding question number 1, how do people decide what they value? And guiding question number 2, how do we decide what we want versus what we need? It's an age-old question. Materials needed are the necklace text, which is right there in your packet, a note catcher, your first read guide for fiction, a pencil, and a device if you have one handy. So your resources and materials for the lesson. Again, we are right here in day 1 of this week, so this video is great to watch. Feel free to watch it over as needed. You'll need the necklace text. We're going to be reading it all the way through today. So again, this is our first read today, so we're just going to hit the ground running. What we're expected to do at the end of this lesson is to complete a first read and write a summary of the text, which is a really important and marketable skill. Again, the materials needed for this lesson, the necklace, the note catcher, first read guide for fiction. It's a great idea to have this video handy. I might even watch it again, depending on how much of a comfort level I've developed. Your overview of learning for this lesson. The target is so important. The target reads, I can complete first read annotations to help with comprehension and future analysis of the text. Now, we've been through how many first reads this year? A ton. Each story is different though, and we're going to notice and pick up different elements of each text that we read. So again, we're just moving right on through this text, picking up what our first initial impressions of the text are, so that we can really sink our teeth into the next lessons moving forward. I know that we're all a little bit familiar around the different framework that we're adopting for this virtual learning, and that's a read, think, talk, write. So you'll see the same rhythm happening in every single lesson that we move into. I would like to have a little bit of an overview of the expectations around the read and think components of your lesson right now. Again, reading and thinking, it's something that we do all the time. But when you actually separate the two and think about the tasks that are associated with it, it makes your reading experience all the more valuable. After reading the text and completing a first read, you may use that grid that's included in your packet for that. What we're going to do is we're going to respond to the question in our note catcher. How might a person's outward appearance fail to tell us everything we need to know about a person or situation? Right there. We're actually going to put it right on our note catcher. We don't need any other pieces of paper, any other materials. We don't need to submit online. It's actually really great. So again, once we finish our reading effort and we start to think about this topic and this question a little bit, we're going to jot down our first points right there on our note catcher. Next, let's do a little bit of talking about our talking and writing components of the lesson. Again, a text is really great, even read in isolation, but it really comes alive and our opinions and our insight really begins to develop when we start to talk to folks about it. So with a family member, caregiver, or friend, or classmate, if you want to phone them up, talk about the following question. Have you ever envied someone else for his or her status or possessions? And how does this question relate to the story? I definitely know that I've envied a couple people. Anyways, but talk about that. It brings the story to life a bit. And of course, in your note catcher, there's a reserved space for your writing assignment. And your writing assignment is to write a summary of the necklace in the space provided. Again, right there on your note catcher space. Again, your summary is not an opinion. It takes the most fundamental parts of the story and it allows someone to have a little bit more of a snapshot into the text. Again, leave your opinion out of this. Just go straight for what's truly important of the story. Your closing. I know you're going to see this closing on the majority of the lesson plans, but your closing is really a chance to wrap up the day's learning. So again, as much as it's important to share your reading with someone, you also want to be able to share your writing with someone as well. This is especially interesting if you're able to connect with a classmate or someone who's doing the same assignment as you when you're talking to your teacher, when you're allowed to share, because your summaries might differ a little bit and the answers to your questions on the different parts of your note catcher might also vary. It's a cool chance to learn about how each person responds to any given text. So again, sharing or writing, super important, uber important. Try it out. And next, remember to read a book for 20 minutes. I know it says book there. I'm going to open it up a little bit and say if you have a newspaper around, if you're a fan of reading blog posts, if you have that favorite novel there, go for it. But reading is reading, and always remember to stretch your reading muscles a little bit and read for 20 minutes a day. Trust me, it's a huge benefit. As promised, we're going to do a quick little model around the reading and thinking about the anchor text. So much like all of our teachers remind us to read the background information about any given text, I'm also here to say read the background information about any given text. It's going to help you immensely with the context. Right? So we already delved a little bit into it. We know that there's a main character. She's introduced, maybe she's envious of certain people's possessions. We know that her dream is to live a life of luxury. Look at all that we've already learned without even reading the text. Pretty cool. This is a first read guide. I know that you've seen a million of these before. I'm going to suggest that you follow along with the first read guide. However, I know that a lot of us are going to want to take notes in the margin, and that's a really great part about having this packet around. We can own the text as much as we want. So we'll actually can take the first read annotations and put them directly on the text if that works. As promised, we're also going to do a quick model of this first read. We know that first reads include us noticing things about a text, annotating the text. We might even connect with certain elements of the text, whether that's a word or a phrase, and responding to the text in writing, which usually comes in the form of a summary. So let's go ahead and read the first 2 paragraphs of the necklace. If you want to take a minute to get your packet out, open up to that first page of the story, and let's read together. She was one of those pretty charming young women who are born as if by an error of fate into a petty official's family. She had no dowry, no hopes, not the slightest chance of being appreciated, understood, loved, and married by a rich and distinguished man. So she slipped into marriage with a minor civil servant at the Ministry of Education. Unable to afford jewelry, she dressed simply, but she was as wretched as a déclassée, for women have neither caste nor breeding. In them beauty, grace, and charm replace pride of birth. Innate refinement, instinctive elegance, and suppleness of wit give them their place on the only scale that counts, and these qualities make humble girls the peers of the grandest ladies. Wow, lots of information right there in this text. What I'm noticing here is a really detailed introduction to the main character. I can see over here, and you can see my notes in the margins, the author opens the story with an elaborate description. We see that she's beautiful, charming, graceful, and yet she dresses in really simple clothes and can't afford jewelry. So it's almost like there's a little bit of a mismatch. Oh, and the fact that she can't afford jewelry, but the story is called The Necklace. As you're reading further, you might want to think about the phrase, things are not always what they appear to be. I think we can definitely see some foreshadowing in these first couple paragraphs of where this woman's wants and desires might lead her. We're going to ask you to respond to the following question in your note catcher. How might a person's outward appearance fail to tell us everything we need to know about a person or situation? Take some time and fill that out in your note catcher. You might want to pause the video as well to give yourself some time in this space. Now, part of what is going to carry us forward is our ability to take that first read of the text and really just kind of internalize it. So again, our first read involves noticing, it involves annotations, it involves connecting, and it involves responding to a text via a summary. So again, you probably, after having read the first read of the text with your family member, caregiver, or friend, do you talk about that question that we raised earlier? Have you envied the possessions of someone else at any point in time? Probably we have, right? I don't know anyone out there who hasn't been like, ooh, I would really like what they have, or I'd really like to drive that kind of car, or own that pair of shoes, or that type of computer, right? A summary, though, is taking that opinion out of it, right? So you can respond to the text in one way, but a summary of the text really asks you to say, what are the most important things that I just read about? So that someone else might pick it up and say, okay, I know what this text is about. This is a really straightforward summary without any opinions of it. I can form my own opinions myself after having read it. So in that space provided in your note catcher, why don't you come up with a summary of the text, the necklace, and share with a friend. Again, and of course, a preview of tomorrow's learning. In lesson 6, we're going to complete close reading annotations to help analyze an author's choices on structuring a text by analyzing irony and its impact on the story. So today, we engaged in first reading activities, and we're able to develop a general understanding of the events in the story. Tomorrow, we're really going to drill down to see how irony is used in the text, what effect that might have on us as the reader. Looking forward to it. If you have any questions about today's learning, please feel free to reach out to your teacher. Emailing your teachers for support is easy. The format is your teacher's first name dot their last name at detroitk12.org. Again, this information can be found on PowerSchool if you're wondering. Here's an example. Thank you for learning with me today. I look forward to teaching you again soon. Here's a couple quick reminders before we wrap up this lesson. Don't forget to talk about this lesson with someone and to share your writing sample. Make sure that you are reading 20 minutes a day. Again, you can read books, you can read blogs, you can read magazines. It's just important that you carve out that time for yourself. Next, practice your reading fluency. There are directions inside of the packet. What this boils down to is you're measuring your rate of reading at the beginning of the week and then comparing that at the end of the week. So reading fluency really gauges your ability to read continuously without interruption, and it also gauges how well you comprehend the text as well. So again, for future clarification, please read the directions inside of your packet, and we'll revisit that by the end of the week. This PowerPoint and this learning and these lessons are brought to you by the Office of English Language Arts and Literacy. Again, we are in this together, and we look forward to engaging and learning with you tomorrow and in the days to come.